Welcome to I Feel Fat Today. I'm your host, Kelly Taylor. It's another Friday. We've made it to the end of another week, which means we are here back with another episode. And guess what, listener? It's another solo episode. I don't know if that means you're happy and excited or disappointed and shutting this off right now, but I'm just letting you know from the jump. It is a solo episode. A little bit about what's happening with me. I'm in a little bit of a weird period of my life. And so the past few weeks, it's been hard to figure out a time when I can nail down recording with a guest. I do have some interviews on the calendar that I hope will mean episodes with guests will start coming soon. Because believe me, I prefer those. Believe it or not, I feel like it's a little bit less work for me when I have a guest on the show. But alas, here we are. It's just you and I for this week, and we're gonna make the most of it. Um, yeah. Okay. So let me get to my notes because I can't do anything without notes in front of me. Even though this is the same shit that I always say, subscribe to us on YouTube over at I Feel Fat Today podcast over there on YouTube. Everyone that subscribes, I love you. You help me out so much, and I really, really, really appreciate it and need my numbers to go up over there. It helps make this whole thing feel legitimate. And you can learn when episodes are available when you subscribe on YouTube, and it's free. That's what's even best. It's like it means a lot to me and it's free. So go over there and subscribe on YouTube. And you can also, if you like giving your opinion about things and assigning a rating to it, you can do that too. If you head over to Apple Podcasts and give a 5-star review. We need reviews over there, over on Apple. Reviews help people discover the podcast. It helps get the word out there about what we're doing over here at I Feel Fat Today. Um, so if you want people to know about a funny diet culture podcast, point them in the direction of I Feel Fat Today. It would mean the world. Check us out on Instagram where you get updates of new episodes and sometimes an occasional clip when I have the time to cut them. You can follow the podcast over on Instagram at I Feel Fat Today, and me, your host, Kelly Taylor, on Instagram at Hello, this is Kelly. And you can send us an email if you would like advice or want to just tell me how you feel. You can send us an email at ifeelfattoday@gmail.com. If you're looking for advice, I'll read it on the podcast and give some advice. We've done it in the past. It's been a lot of fun. And I think I am good at giving advice. Many of my friends call me their therapists that they have on payroll, even though I do not get paid. But, so I am good at giving advice. So email me. Let me know your troubles. It doesn't even have to be weight loss related or how you feel about your body related. I'll give you advice on just about anything. I'm qualified to do nothing. Also, this week, I did a really fun podcast with former guest Lauren Petrie. She's a co-host of the podcast Alien Murder Sex Pod. And my episode that I recorded a few weeks ago with them is now out on YouTube. So if you want to check that out, we talk a little bit about skinwalkers, which is just an area of interest that I had. Maybe I'll have Lauren on again where we can talk about all things alien murder sex pod. Okay, so that's that. What has been happening with me? Instagram. Me saying Instagram reminded me of something that I wanted to highlight really quickly on the podcast. So I post things on social media all the time. They never really get any traction. I don't have things ever really get above a few hundred likes. Never mind it's very hit or miss, and most of the time my likes are very, very low, but it's all in ratio to how many followers I have because I don't have many followers. But I posted something on Instagram this past week and it seemed to have hit a little bit. I seem to have hit a niche, and I've gone a little viral. It's under 10,000 likes at this point of me recording it, but I posted this. I tweeted something that I then screenshotted and posted on Instagram. I'll post it right here. And it says it's a trend that I hopped on where people took a Taylor Swift lyric that says you wouldn't last an hour in the asylum where they raised me. And people like, I saw Kitty Reynolds, former guest of the show, had posted one, and it was like a picture of a can of Four Loko. There are all different kinds of, you wouldn't last an hour in the asylum where they raised me. And it's just something that it will point, it'll cut to a photo of something like, the Real Housewives of New Jersey, Teresa Giudice's kitchen, just bring you back to sort of a memory. And so I was thinking like, oh, I should hop on this. Like, it's Taylor Swift lyric. I'm sure I can come up with something. A lot of what I do is all about talking about trauma. So there has to be something, right? And I thought about it and I thought, well, what about the asylum where they raised me? Well, I did go to Catholic school. Oh, we had to wear a uniform. Oh, what was the uniform store that we used to go to? And I remembered it was Flynn and O'Hara. And I remember I hated going to Flynn and O'Hara every year where we'd have to go for a uniform. And so this is what I posted. You wouldn't last an hour in the asylum where they raised me. And it's a photo of a dusty ass Flynn and O'Hara. And a lot of people have found that online and by a lot of people, I mean, a few thousand, not that many, but a lot for me, have found that and are commenting and sharing their shared experiences of how much it sucked. Because basically, summer school lets out for the summer, and you're riding high. You're not thinking about, your book reports that are due in September. You're definitely not thinking about getting your uniform. And then all of a sudden August rolls around and your mom is screaming at you to get into the car because we have to drive 40 minutes down to the Flynn and O'Hara, and we have to get in line, which were always hella long. And you would wait and you'd have to try to find your uniform, and then my mom would be screaming at me because I didn't have the uniform in the size that they didn't have the size that I needed in a uniform. And everything would be on back order. It was just a fucking nightmare. I don't know how to not curse. It was just a fucking nightmare. And it's funny because that's what I love about putting stuff out, and like comedy in general is like saying a joke that resonates with people, that like you kind of think is something that only you've experienced, but it just shared experienced amongst thousands of people. And so that happened. And something that I've noticed with people discovering a post is them sharing it to their stories. And most people just kind of share it and move on because they think it's funny. And other people add some commentary. And there were a few people, mostly women, that I could tell had posted the meme, I guess, yeah, the meme to the story, and sort of wrote out stories of when they were younger and mostly overweight and having a hard time at Flynn and O'Hara. And it just tickled me. I really enjoyed it. And so that's on my Instagram if you want to check it out. And send it to a friend. Okay, so this week's low calorie sweet treat of the week goes out to Jessamine Stanley. Check out Jessamine Stanley's YouTube page. The link to her YouTube will be in the description of the show. As always, I always put the links to everything there. But the reason why Jessamine is a low calorie sweet treat of the week is because I have been very stressed. I've been very stressed, as I mentioned before. I'm not going to go get too far into it, but I am in a transitionatory period of my life. More on that later when I'm at liberty to speak about it. But I've been very stressed, like eating badly stressed, hair coming out in clumps in the shower stressed, violent outburst stress, panic attack stress. And something I have found like a lot of comfort in is doing yoga when I, am able to carve the time out to do said yoga. And something that I have trouble with sometimes when I feel like I go and I search yoga on YouTube, just basic 30-minute, 20-minute yoga sessions. The instructor is always skinny, which of course they're like a professional yoga instructor, so like they're going to be skinny. And I find that I beat myself up if I can't do a pose on like a beginner video. And it makes me not want to do it. It makes me not want to try this thing that I am using actually as a stress relief. And I have a hard time with it when I can't achieve something that is labeled as beginner. And I'm not sure how I stumbled onto Jessamyn's page, but she's awesome, and she created a yoga. Let me see, I want to pull up the information so I have it correct here. So she is the founder and yoga teacher at something called the Underbelly, which is basically, the Underbelly is a group, a virtual yoga studio, because I think it's all like online, where any sort of ability that you have, any sort of body that you live in, you can do the Underbelly, and do the yoga. Jessamyn is a plus sized person, and so it's really, I think, it's really comforting and inspiring for me to see somebody in a bigger body do yoga in the way that she does yoga, because there's intricate poses that I kind of always thought I wasn't ever going to ever be able to attain because of the body that I'm in. And Jessamyn shows me like that's not the case. That's just a limiting self-belief. Even though right now you may not have the ability to achieve a certain pose because your hips aren't loose enough, that doesn't mean it's going to be that way for forever. And you don't have to be a certain size in order to achieve something like a yoga pose that you're having difficulty with. So that's my low calorie sweet treat of the week. Definitely check that out if you're looking to get more movement into your life, if you're interested in getting into yoga a little bit, but you've been feeling intimidated. I think Jessamyn Stanley and the Underbelly is a really, really, really great place to start. Follow them on social media, all the different social media pages. And I don't even pay for anything. You can pay for stuff, but there's a lot of free stuff just like on Instagram and YouTube. Okay. So that's what I have to kick us off. Now, guys, listener, I love you very much. I just want to say that. And I don't want anybody to feel like because episodes haven't been hitting an hour, they have been a little bit on the shorter end, doesn't mean that I don't love you any less, or that I'm not at all into this. Sorry, a car drove by and it was very loud and it scared me. Doesn't mean I love you any less, doesn't mean I love doing this podcast any less. It's just I'm trying to do what I can with the time that I have. And so it's just been a little bit difficult, but I'm committed to my listeners. I'm committed to my subscribers. I'm committed to this I Feel Fat today because it's my favorite thing that I've ever created. So this episode is going to be a little bit shorter, but we're going to get back on track soon. Okay. We're trucking along, and this podcast might be one of the few things that are keeping me going. So here we go. All right. So for this week, the real meat and potatoes of this podcast is going to be an article that I found from the New York Times. Now, the cool thing about this, if you're listening to I Feel Fat today, is you get to digest this article from the New York Times without having to pay anything for it, because there is a paywall on the New York Times. And so if you're listening to this free episode 50 of I Feel Fat today, I cannot believe I've been doing this almost a year. That is so insane. You get it for free. So I'm going to read this article, and I thought that it was kind of perfect for us because the article is called "They Promoted Body Positivity, Then They Lost the Weight. Do plus size influencers owe their followers an explanation when their bodies change?" And this is something I am very much interested in because my algorithm is filled with plus size influencers, or influencers of all shapes and sizes. But this is a conversation that comes up a lot, is is it okay for a plus size influencer to lose the weight? I have a joke about my friends being on Ozempic, and I find it very frustrating because now all of a sudden, my former fat friends are offering me their quote old fat clothes. And, Lizzo can go on Ozempic and become a brand new person because she's not going to offer me her old Canada Goose jacket. It's not a good joke. I don't do that one on stage anymore. But like that's sort of like the vibe of people change their bodies and then their kind of personalities change. We've talked a little bit about new body behavior on this show in the past. And anytime a influencer or celebrity that sort of came onto the scene plus size and is now thin, people that have always been in plus size bodies and liked the influencer or celebrity because they're plus size could kind of feel like, oh, we lost them, oh, what a traitor, think Adele, think Lizzo, think Oprah, not Lizzo, not Lizzo. I'm sorry, I have Lizzo on the brain. Adele, Rebel Wilson, or Oprah. These are women that have been plus size in the public eye for maybe Oprah's a bad example, but Adele, okay, like she's someone that came onto the scene plus size and then lost a bunch of weight. And now everybody's crying, oh, it's Ozempic, but we don't know. We don't know what people are doing. And that in and of itself is interesting. That in and of itself of someone being popular in a fat body, now they're rich and famous and they're no longer in a fat body. How do their base of fans that appreciated them for their fatness, how does that make them feel? And that is a question in and of itself. And that I don't think is so much a thing or an issue as opposed to what really is troubling is when a former plus size influencer becomes skinny and now is disparaging of the plus size community. I talked about this a little bit with Flora Lise when she was on, who, by the way, is doing a Netflix taping. Okay. Pretty fucking sick. But Gloria Lise and I talked about a little bit about how Heather Gay from Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, she kind of was like the plus size housewife on that franchise and now is on Ozempic and has lost a bunch of weight via liposuction and all these other, cosmetic procedures. And she said something like super crazy, like the body positive movement got it wrong. And, no matter how you feel about the body positive movement, if you're somebody that was fat and now you're not fat anymore because of Ozempic and like body modification surgery, who are you to say that the body positive community got it wrong? Just because you had a tough go at it and you couldn't love yourself in whatever size you needed to love yourself in, it's not a knock against body positivity, whatever. I don't know how I feel about body positivity. But those are the instances I think that are super interesting to me. So I'm excited to read this article from the New York Times about influencers losing weight and sort of how that comes across to the people that made them have a following. So let's sink our teeth into it. Again, this is the New York Times. Now, if you do want to pay for a copy of this article or I think you can do like a free subscription. The link to this article will be in the body of the show, of this episode. Okay. All right. They promoted body positivity. Then they lost the weight. Do plus size influencers owe their followers an explanation when their bodies change? Tiana James used to love looking at the photos Jerome Davis posted of herself on Instagram. Miss Davis, a plus size model, included pictures from her modeling campaigns alongside selfies of her stretch mark stomachs with caption like "Fat Belly, Saggy Tits Sunday." For Miss James, 22, Miss Davis's feed was a revelation. I wanted to feel comfortable in my body, and she was like me in so many ways. So it made it easier to be myself, Miss James said. And I find it, and I could find this person so beautiful, and she was bigger, and I could find myself beautiful too. That's something I totally relate to. I feel like I wasn't allowing myself to wear certain kinds of clothing until I saw models or influencers that were in bigger bodies wearing clothing that I wanted to wear, but I just couldn't see myself in it. Okay, sorry, going back here. Miss Davis gained a following through posts that criticized diet culture as she built a career as a curve model. She wore up to a size 16 or XXL, most predominantly for Dion, a California fashion brand known for floral prairie dresses typically worn by more willowy women. Willowy, that's so funny. Her feed was a running commentary on the realistic expectation to conform to a thin ideal. A flat stomach won't change your life, and it's so exhausting being afraid and ashamed of your parts of your body. Oh boy, do I keep sort of stopping and interjecting here, but boy, do I agree with that. Like a mantra that I have sort of tried to implement when I get dressed, especially when I'm getting dressed for an event where I'm going to see friends. I have to tell myself, like my arms do not ruin this outfit. My stomach does not ruin this outfit, because so much of being exposed and having, the fatness of your body sort of on display, on display, on display, the fatness of your body on display, because you're not concealing it with a certain shape of a shirt or pant, does feel like you are inherently ruining an outfit when you're not okay with being in a bigger body. Okay, sorry, moving on. Then, over just a few months, Miss Davis shrank. She still posted the artsy selfies Miss James loved, but photos of soft belly rolls were replaced by sharp cheekbones and clavicles. She continued to write in her confessional style, sharing her feelings about everything from constipation to career insecurities. But Miss Davis stopped posting her habitual rants against fat phobia, and she didn't explain why or how she had lost so much weight. To Miss James, Miss Davis's silence felt like a betrayal. It made me feel like she was being dishonest with her community, Miss James said. I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it was owed to us, but it was such a drastic change. The body positive movement has recently faltered in a cultural movement moment where thin is back in, though some argue it never really left, thanks in part to the rise of new drugs like Ozempic that are being used for weight loss. Celebrities, models, and influencers like Miss Davis, who once celebrated their curves, are grappling with how to discuss their smaller bodies, while their followers feel as if they're abandoned. The, sorry, while their followers feel as if they've abandoned the causes they used to champion, encouraging people to challenge weight stigma and to accept themselves as they are. Okay, so now it posts a photo from Drone Me's Instagram, where it's a photo of her in I guess a bathing suit with the caption "Fat belly, saggy tits Sunday." Doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, but y'all get it. So this is a photo in her embracing her curves and belly. Okay, she won't cop to it. Miss Davis said that she had long agonized over how to publicly address her weight loss. Despite what some of her followers suspected, she wasn't on Ozempic. The truth? That she had relapsed into a disordered eating practices that she had struggled with throughout her life. Was hard for her to admit, even to herself. How had she succumbed to the same pressures she had warned nearly 100,000 followers about? And isn't that the key thing in all of this? The silence equals shame. Silence equals shame. So, as an influencer, this influencer, has her platform as a body positive, plus size creator. Over time, you see them losing weight, but they're not mentioning it. They're not saying it. And it's leaving the followers to speculate over over what's happening. And of course, I think we sort of have this idea that an influencer is somebody that has money. And if you have money, that means you have access to Ozempic. And that is true. But in this instance here, this influencer is somebody that succumbed to the pressures of being at all public facing, something that isn't even something. This influencer is public facing and has succumbed to the pressures of that and fell back into her eating disorder. Something that, if you're not a public facing person, could be something that you fall back into because that's how pervasive eating disorders are. And so my whole point here is to say silence equals shame. The influencer was ashamed of themselves, so they fell into a shame spiral of, losing themselves into an eating disorder, which affected them, causing them to lose weight. And then the viewer, the follower of this influencer, also, because of the silence, feels shame about themselves and wonders, am I not good? Is my body not good? Because this person that I looked up to that had a body that mimicked mine now doesn't and isn't talking about why it happened. So silence equals violence. Okay. The only thing people are going to be okay with is a very detailed explanation, which is not something I can write in a caption. The 24-year-old said by Zoom from her bedroom in the woods in Mendocino, California, where she lives with her mother. She didn't want to beat herself up for relapsing, but she also empathized with followers like Miss James. I gathered all these women to follow me because I was going to be inspiring and make them feel empowered, Miss Davis said. How can I still expect their attention and support? Miss Davis grew up in a small town in Northern California. She put herself on a diet by the time she was 12 after she began to develop breasts. Her weight fluctuated, but when she was thinner, she said she could fit into the Abercrombie miniskirts that her friends wore, and teachers took her more seriously. She was discovered through her Instagram shortly after she graduated from high school and soon landed a job as Dion's first curve model. She has since modeled for much bigger brands, including Levi's, Sephora, and the North Face. But she became a familiar fixture on Dion's website. The designers could have called her their longtime muse and named a pair of jeans that came in extended sizes after her. Miss Davis grew up online. As Miss Davis grew up online, it felt natural to post about all the facets of her life, not just her modeling, but her racial justice activism, her artwork, and her evolving relationship to her body. Looking back, she said, in her passion to share her own learning process, she unintentionally positioned herself as an expert on body acceptance when that was not the case. It was a humbling experience and part of the reason she has not yet broached her weight loss publicly. I'm scared of being judged or yelled at or letting people down, she said, which is ironic because I think my silence is letting people down more than me talking about it. Some of the people who left comments on Miss Davis's Instagram about her weight were kind. Quote, worried about you, ... Hope you're okay. Some chastised her, quote, this sort of rapid and continued weight loss is concerning. And others were cruel, calling her sickly skinny. When Miss Davis started deleting comments, followers decamped to other online forums to speculate further. I figure it must be Ozempic, like everyone else, and she doesn't want to talk about it, which is a little off brand because she's so open about everything else, a user wrote on Reddit. The commenter told the New York Times that she loved Miss Davis regardless of her size, but still expected answers. She talks about everything, she said, every pimple she's had on her face, every rash she has on her arm. So why hasn't she mentioned this? She completely altered her body and she won't cop to it, said another Instagram follower in an interview. She purchased Dion items because Miss Davis modeled them, including her namesake jeans. If you're going to be out there using your body to make a living and position yourself as a brand, then you walk away from your brand. I think you can't expect the community around you to not react, she said. I do think that that person has a point. Part of me as I'm reading this aloud is feeling like, well, does this influencer owe you anything? And I guess in a way, kind of, yeah, because part of being a brand is you're selling something. And so this influencer that was plus size and starts, posting themselves as they're rapidly losing weight. Of course, your fan base, your follower base is going to be confused. I think demanding answers a little bit much, but by not providing answers, by not giving any context of what's happening with you, you're leading people to speculate. And that goes into sort of the parasocial relationships we have with people that we follow online is, you know, because we listen to them weekly on a podcast, or we look out for their posts because we want to see what they're posting about, especially when they're talking about every facet of their life in such detail, even so much as a pimple on their face. You want to know what's happening with them. And it feels a little bit odd when you're not getting answers to something that is very obvious. And I do think that there is an argument for the influencers don't owe you anything, but I do also think that there is something to the argument or idea that yes, they kind of do when this is what you've built your follower base around. And the article will probably go into this a little bit more, but it feels to me that transparency and authenticity is part of what made Miss Davis have this brand and this following. It's what people liked. And that's the number one thing. That's the number one commodity. If you're listening to this podcast, the number one thing that you can do and that you can be to be successful is to be authentic. That's why if I'm not feeling like I'm in a good mood, even though the show must go on, I'm not going to come on here and lie to you and tell you that everything is great and I'm just having scheduling issues with my podcast. No, things are not great. I'm having a tough time. Things are kind of in flux in my life. And so it's hard for me to, what X, Y, and Z, whatever. I do think authenticity and transparency is so important to, having a public brand that people can trust. Having said that, I feel like if Miss Davis could have been more open about the fact that she was suffering with an eating disorder, it would have stopped the speculation to a degree. It would have helped the followers, her followers, empathize with her and take comfort in the fact that this is a person that's constantly posting about body positivity and loving themselves, only now they're having a hard time with it and it's affecting the way that they look. I think the listener or the follower would have had a much easier time understanding where the influencer was coming from if they were open about it. But as they said, it's a very emotional thing that they themselves have a hard time coming to terms with. And that brings us back to shame. Okay, moving on. Okay, life is too hard in this body. Right now, body positive influencers who have decided to be open about losing weight have also had to navigate a community that is often disappointed and angry. The plus size influencer Rosie Blair, who is taking Mounjaro, seemed defiant when she posted, "Full transparency. I have zero remorse or shame for being public about my weight loss. 2 years ago, I couldn't wipe my own ass. Critics called her ableist and self-hating." That doesn't feel fair. Okay, that does not feel fair. If this woman wants to have the ability to wipe her own ass, she should be able to, do what she got to do to lose weight. Continue. People are crazy. That is so insane. Okay. I left the body positive community because I wanted to be defined by my interests outside of my body. And she posted in response. And okay, sorry, I keep jumping around, but that excerpt there, critics call her ableist and self-hating. That is part of the reason why people with a brain have a hard time accepting the body positive community or whatever, because they see someone wanting to better themselves and, be able to quote wipe their own ass. And now they're being called ableist. It's like, if you're fine, or if you're somebody that has trouble, let's say, wiping their own ass because of the size of their body, you don't have to change. If you can't change, if you don't want to change, if you can't change right now, but maybe you want to change down the line, that is totally your prerogative. But a person that is public and talks about, what it's like not being able to wipe their own ass, and now they are taking the steps to be able to wipe their own ass, they have the right to do that without being disparaging to an entire community. Moving on. One creator posted a how-to guide for followers who were wrestling with their reaction to people losing weight. So your favorite fat creator doesn't want to be fat anymore. Here are 6 mindset tips to process their journey in a self-loving way for you. Basically the advice in a nutshell, TLDR, unfollow that person. Let's see if I can go through these and read them. The rise of GLP. Yeah, okay. So I'll quickly read these. The rise of GLPs has made the process of weight loss, quote, easier and more accessible for many people. This means the general, we are seeing more and more creators who have gained recognition for loving their bodies, suddenly demonstrating a desire to change or showing off their change. Every person has the right to want to lose weight or change their body, but in this case, it can feel super emotional for the community that follows them. Big disclaimer, I support someone's desire to weigh less. I also support someone's desire to not lose weight. What I care about is that all people make the decision that is most self-loving for them by being radically honest and self-accountable. I myself have been on a very slow trek to remove excess weight from my body, but here's what's important for you. 1, the journey has 100% nothing to do with you. You also have no idea what their life experience is. And even if you do, that is their choice. 2, it feels really icky and if it feels really icky and you think their voice has been disingenuous, stop listening to them. 3, not every quote community leader has their shit together. Don't assume just because they have a large platform and their words are aligned and helpful. Listen to Dear Reader by Taylor Swift for a little note on that. 4, yes, some folks may have used their fat identity to get popular and are now abandoning ship. That sucks, but sometimes people suck. Let them. 5, focus on you. 6, relationships are built on agreements. When someone changes their agreement, you are empowered to end the relationship. The takeaway, the most self-loving thing that you can do is create our own value system as it relates to our own body and weight. The more strongly we are connected to this value system, the less others' actions impact our sense of self. It doesn't mean you can't disagree with what other people do. It just means those feelings more easily flow through you instead of owning you. So those are the tips. Again, TLDR, just unfollow the person. And maybe they'll get fat again because they want followers. Okay. The longtime curve model, Gabriella Lascano, filmed a TikTok video last year about her decision to lose weight, explaining that she felt, quote, guilty for being part of the body positive movement. She told The Times she hadn't been honest about the trials and tribulations of gaining weight and getting older. People accused her of equating thinness with health and of producing content that could be used to justify fat phobia. The outrage was so intense that she removed the video. I think it's strange to be so hurt when someone chooses something for themselves, says Miss Lascano said about the criticism she received. But influencers' personal choices affect the community they've cultivated, often leaving followers, especially vulnerable young people, feeling disillusioned and adrift. Those who appear to flip-flop can cause intense feelings of betrayal, said Sally A. Theron, a clinical psychologist and professor at Wesley College who has researched parasocial relationships. The one-sided ties people form with media figures and influencers and disordered eating in adolescence. I think if you're going to put yourself out there, if you're going to earn money, then you're positioning yourself as a leader in this domain, and you should take responsibility for the repercussions, Ms. Theron said. On a recent episode of the Burnt Toast podcast covering the rise of fat influencers losing weight, Virginia Sole-Smith, a journalist who writes about diet culture, who has contributed to the Times, said that influencers who once promoted fat acceptance but now claim they feel healthier when they are thinner are, quote, throwing everyone else under the bus. You use the hashtags in order to grow your following, in order to post your affiliate links, get your sponsored deals, all of that, Ms. Soul-Smith said. So now what you're basically telling us is you co-opted all the rhetoric and you don't believe in it at all, as this, and that is pretty gross. That's a very good point. And I kind of mentioned that before. Yeah, you basically used a certain community to get up on the ranks and get your bag. And now that you have the bag, you have the money to now become one with the hot people, when you were trying to tell the fat people that they were the hot ones, but you don't really think that because now you're trying to lose weight. So that is a really good point. I don't know if I necessarily agree that, and I don't know if this, Miss Theron is saying this, but just because somebody lives in one body doesn't mean that they, can't then decide they want to be in a different body. But I do think that how they handle it is something that they do need to take into account. Her co-host Corinne Frey said that she thought it was better for influencers to be upfront if they were using weight loss drugs instead of vaguely claiming to be, quote, pursuing health. They don't want to call it a diet, so they call it a health and fitness journey, Ms. Soul-Smith said. That's pretty exasperating. I think a conversation that we're going to start seeing a little bit more is about one particular Remi Bader, who I featured a TikTok of hers where she was crying and upset over people commenting on her body because people are horrible to that poor woman. Remi Bader, you're like a dream guest. Please come on. But I have been noticing that in some of her posts recently, she is looking thinner. And I know she's going through a breakup right now. So it could be just like, working out to get like that revenge bod. But should someone like Remi Bader, who has struggled with her weight in the public eye and has publicly posted that, you're no longer going to be privy about like what I'm doing fitness wise, what I'm doing medically to lose weight, medications for myself, I'm cutting you off from that. Is she somebody that should be, sort of told that she needs to cop to if, she's using GLP-1s to lose weight? I don't know necessarily, because she kind of told us to all go fuck ourselves. So does she need to? But Miss Davis, if Miss Davis goes on Ozempic, does she have to? I don't know. The area is gray. With weight loss came affirmation. Few people, if any, become body positive proponents without struggling with the same societal standards they speak out against. I've seen creators say things like, it's just too hard. Life is too hard in this body, said Katie Sortino, a body acceptance and advocate. It can feel like betrayal, but it's a symptom of our culture and how in our society it can still feel, it is still the worst thing to be fat. People are still terrified of being in a bigger body. I do love Katie Storino, which reminds me I have to mention something at the end of this. Miss Davis acknowledged that with her weight loss came affirmation, more party invitations, more attention from men. I so badly wanted to be like, what you look like doesn't matter, she said, but it sure does change how people treat you. When she relapsed, Miss Davis convinced herself she was just trying to eat healthier and be more active. Soon, though, she said she was subsisting on rice cakes and Red Bull. Whew, girl, been there. When she ran into friends from the modeling world, she was forced to explain herself. She pretended she was vegan. Online, she could evade every question. Part of me was embarrassed and felt really guilty, Miss Davis said. All I ever wanted was to do on the internet was make women feel okay about themselves. Miss Davis recently posted an Instagram video of herself posing in a bandana top and cargo pants for a partnership with Free People. She always looks quirkily chic. She always looks thin. She says she has good days and bad, but that she is trying to be more honest in conversations with friends. She often thinks of how her mother and her grandmother have also struggled with body image their entire lives. She wants her followers to know that she meant it when she told them to reject fat phobia. It's always coming from a place that was genuine, she said. But given that she's still working on her own issues and given that she's no longer plus size, she doesn't feel it's her place to advocate for body positivity online. I don't know about that. There was a time when I was in a body where I was experiencing fat phobia, she said. Now that I'm not in that body currently, I don't think my voice is needed. I can I can kind of see that, but it really feels like you're being like, peace, fatties. I don't relate. I'm not in that body. So you're just leaving? You can still be somebody. Body positivity is not just about fat people. It's about people with disabilities. It's about people that are really, really thin and they have a hard time feeling like they, are attractive or feel good in their body because they're super thin. I don't know. I don't know if I like that. When Miss James first noticed that Miss Davis had lost weight, she unfollowed her. I didn't think it was good for me, she said. But then she noticed her feeds were full of people posting their exercise and diet routines. Miss Davis was just one of many women who were no longer proudly plus size. Miss James refollowed her, and recently she said she started working out and shedding pounds herself. I guess my weight is just as much of a trend as anything else, Miss James said. And that was that. That was from the New York Times. Interesting. It really made me think about it because I think about even for myself, like, what if one day I decide to go on Ozempic? What if one day I just say, fuck it, I'm tired. I'm going on Ozempic. I want to be skinny. How would that affect the brand of I Feel Fat Today? And it all just comes down to the fact that I am authentically myself. Like, I'm never going to not be me. And if I'm doing something like that, I'll be honest about it and I'll say it. Especially because I don't consider myself like a pioneer in body positivity. I'm not out here, showing my belly, being like, love yourself, because I'm not there. I don't know how to be there. Like that would be inauthentic of me. So keep doing what you're doing, I guess. Yes. Okay. So that was that. I found it interesting. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope my reading was okay. Um, but there was something that I wanted to bring up during the pod that now I can. Oh, I have to look on my phone. Sorry. So the article mentioned Kate Sereno, who was a really good follow. She has a super fun sort of not series, but super fun thing that she does on her Instagram where she will walk into a store and say, can I buy clothes from here? And so she'll like walk into Revolve and see like what's the highest size they'll go to, because she's probably like I'm bad at this, but like maybe a size 16. So like it's not it's kind of crazy that a store wouldn't have clothes for her. And so that's a really fun series. And so I follow her. There's these things on Instagram called broadcast channels where someone you follow, you can be in a channel where they kind of just like post a bunch of stuff. No one else can post anything. It's just them. And Kate posted that she is going to be I don't know if she's hosting the panel, but she's going to be okay. So she's going to be on a panel with Oprah and the CEO of Weight Watchers. And it's a virtual thing that you can sign up for. So I'm going to try to watch it and then cover it on an episode of the podcast. But yourself, if you're interested, you should sign up for it. It's Weight Watchers plus Oprah, called Making the Shift, a new way to think about weight. And because Katie has this involvement in it, I don't think it's going to be another 45-minute long ad for Ozempic, like how Oprah's ABC special was. But it's May 9th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So the link will be in the show notes, where you can sign up for that and check it out. Like I said, I'm going to try to recap it on an episode of the podcast, but I'm not making any promises. Okay. So yeah, that's that. Sorry I look crazy. I don't have any makeup on. I'm just doing filters on Zoom so that I look a little bit less dead. Super soft focus on right now. But yeah, I think that's all I got. I'm gonna edit this bad boy and post it. You guys are great. I love you very much. I don't know who's listening to this. I have no idea who listens to this podcast because no one comments and no one leaves reviews. And if you want to be a quiet listener, if you just want to be somebody that throws it on and you don't want me to know that you exist, I am so fine with that. I love you. I thank you. And you can say that you were with the podcast before it got super big. So, okay, I don't know. Maybe it's just bots that maybe it's somebody that like accidentally clicks on the episode and then like Spotify and Apple and YouTube just like see it as a listen. I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna go. I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend and I'll talk to you next week. Bye.